launch our meeting to YouTube and then start recording, and then we can start officially. Okay, we are live. You're welcome to start the meeting. That's you, Dave.
Oh, it's usually Dale or the mayor. I think that was the chairman of the group, so I was waiting, but,
Oh, I had you as the chair.
oh, no, I think it's one of them, but it doesn't matter.
Okay.
The mayor is usually the chair.
Mayor,
Oh.
okay,
Oh, I'll call the meeting to order then.
okay, either way.
All right, anybody want to keep any of this crap? No, let's go.
Wait a minute.
Remember, this is a public meeting.
What we want to do today, if everybody has their agenda in front of them, we have a fairly large list of things that we put together on our form RC3 that everybody also has. And we would like approval to dispose of everything listed here. And I had a need for clarification from Dale on a couple of the items.
Okay.
Whether they mesh with our form or our schedule RC2. Have you looked at these yet, Dale, or not yet?
I did look at the RC2, but I have not. Hang on a second. I don't think I have the list of what you want to dispose of to be added. I don't recall getting that.
Christie sent that yesterday.
And I have it on screen if you're able to
Oh,
look at
good.
your screen share.
No, that I have.
Do you have, let me stop my annotation. Oh, I
There
didn't
we
know.
go. That's the one.
I do not have that.
It was in the email that I sent yesterday.
Oh, I do have that. I thought it was a different document. Okay, I
Okay.
see it now.
If you look at the schedule number for all these items, they're listed under 1016 or variable. The other schedule number would be 1010. They both refer to finance department stuff, and they both refer to computer generated reports or computer printouts.
Okay.
Everything on here is basically a computer printout generated by the village or by the banks that we use. The accounts payable on the top is our big books of computer printouts. Checking statements are generated by the bank. Those are computer generated. Deposit slips are generated by the bank. Month end is our big computer generated books. That's our payroll. And the vouchers at the bottom. The question I have is mainly on the vouchers. This is what they look like, Dale. Just they're
Yeah.
copies of old checks,
Okay.
and they are computer generated. Would that be covered by our definitions in the RC2?
Let me pull that up. Hang on a second.
They're not computer generated reports exactly, but they're computer generated printouts. And they refer to,
Computer printouts, various monthly payment adjustment.
That's 1016.
either 1010 or 1016. Do they fit in either category to your mind?
Go back to 1010, Christie.
To me, they certify a transaction and they're computer generated, so I thought they would fit, but
Non-specific or set policy that would certify trend. Yeah, I would say it's 1010.
okay. But they would be disposable then, in your mind?
These are all prior to 2011.
Correct. We're being real conservative. We're just destroying up through 2010. Even
Yeah,
though
I
we
would-
could go a lot later, we're gonna hold on to some old stuff.
Right, as long as you determine they're no longer of any administrative or fiscal value.
Yeah, they're definitely not. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, very good.
So are we verifying that vouchers fit into the category 1010 and not 1016?
Right.
Right.
Okay,
And then my other question, the only other thing here that's not, well, two other questions quickly. One is the line that says pay-ins. Those are the same. They're not of any value anymore, but they're not computer generated. They're
Which ones are these? Which ones are these?
pay-ins, the fifth one down, I think, fifth one down. Those are hand typed. Those are recordings of what we take in each month in
Oh.
terms of payments. But they're not, again, they're not computer generated.
Those are all now on computer for what we do today, right?
They what?
Those are no longer paper documents anymore, right?
No, they still are.
They still are?
They still are.
Oh.
Just easy to use that way.
Do we have a electronic or digital version backup of those?
Well, we do when they're entered. Those are
Okay.
it's more of a secondary step from when we take in money and record it. It's a good way to accumulate the payments for the month. And then
Yeah,
they're recorded
Yeah.
further.
Yeah, the only thing I'm concerned about is that there might be something still related to our matter with Debbie that we would not want to destroy.
Okay. We can hang on to them.
Good point, Neil. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, we'll hold those then.
Okay,
for future reference, if you could tell me what category they would fit into, that would be helpful.
let me get, there was just something, billing systems did. Yeah, no, I think that still is going to be under, no, it's not 1010 because it's not computer generated.
Right.
So it's got to be, let me go back. Actually, I got to go forward.
Those two, I think, are the only ones that really refer directly to finance department stuff or administration.
Well, and because they're not computer generated, I'm not finding a category.
Correct, right. So would we need to, in the future, amend our RC2 to be more specific on that, or no?
Yeah, I think we should.
You think we should? Okay. We
Yeah,
can do
we'll have to bid for
down the road.
approval. Yeah,
These are not a big problem. They don't take up a lot of space. It's just we threw them on the list.
yeah, these are not expenses. These are just receipts for what's
Right.
paid in.
Right.
Yeah, because we would be okay if they were expense records.
Okay.
Let me look at one other.
We'll look
Right.
into amending this down the road if you think that would be better.
Yeah,
Fairly
have-
soon.
we have petty cash. Nope,
No,
it's not covered.
nope. Okay. That'll be
Yeah.
one we'll put on the agenda for the next meeting,
Okay,
as far as amending the RC2. There may be a couple other things we want to do with it too.
right.
Christy, did you have any other questions on the RC3?
The pay-ins and the vouchers were the only question I had. And I just wanted to point out that we have recordings of public meetings and confirming that they fall into the category 1067. And that I'm approved to get rid of those.
They look like they fall into 1067, recordings of public meetings.
Mhm.
Me too. Okay, so to summarize, the vouchers fall into category 1010. The pay-ins do not meet a category, so we need to keep those for two reasons. One, until the Debbie Bosworth situation is completed, and then we will amend the RC2 to include them in the future.
Correct.
Okay.
And then I had one more question for Dale. As far as payroll, what would be your interpretation of disposing of old payroll printouts?
I did see a section on that. Let me find that.
The one right in the middle there. Again, these are big books of old computer printouts. Summaries of every payroll going back.
Okay, so this is, these are not computer generated, right?
No, they are.
Oh, they are.
Right. They're a big, maybe 40, 50 page printout from every payroll. There we go.
The
Thank you.
sample.
Oh, my
Thank
God.
you. That's perfect. There's one example right there. That's only what? How many months?
6.
6 months. And we got these going back to way back.
Yep.
1980s, 90s.
Mhm.
And tell me, what's all the information that's contained in them?
It would have a little summary, like it would have a little summary of every employee's paycheck for that payroll period. So it's like what you would see on your pay stub.
Okay. So,
Do you have any other kind of record about that? Some kind of a composite of everything?
We keep all W-2s forever. We don't have individual payroll records other than this.
Dave, do we keep the files electronically that generate this paper report on
Not
the
going,
network?
not going back that far. You would, could pretty much guarantee, we do recently, more recently, but
Yep.
going back to late 80s, early 90s, I don't think that would be found.
we do not have a category for that.
Well, we were hoping maybe if it's disposable, we go off the just computer printout, computer generated printouts.
Well, but you refer to 16, and that talks about various monthly payment adjustment penalty summary, closing fund balance, month-end reports or spreadsheets.
Mm-hmm.
Various monthly payment.
Right.
I don't think we can do it under 16.
Okay. Well, how would we need to? Well,
We
we
would
can talk about that at a future day. We can amend the
Yeah,
RC2.
Yeah, we'd have to amend the schedule to include these payroll records.
Okay,
I'll
we
put
can
that
do-
on the list for next meeting.
we could do that. No problem.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
let's have that next meeting this year, not next year, right?
we'll try.
Every 6 months,
We're
they're
on the
supposed to
fourth.
go.
We're on the 4-year cycle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Laura's got this right.
Now, I know.
I'm working on it.
I have a question. Can it be done on the RC3 as a one-time destruction and then added to the RC2 for all future records that fall into that category?
No, that's a different form for one time. That's an RC1, I believe.
It is.
Yeah.
So, but I guess what I'm saying is if you wanted to get rid of those now, couldn't you put in for a one-time destruction and then add it to the RC2, or does it not work that way?
No, you could, but you got to get approval first from the state.
Which do we, oh,
And it would only give you one-time approval. If
Right.
you're gonna do one or the other, I guess it's easier just to do an RC2 and have it permanent.
Right, I
Yep.
agree.
They would still go through all the same process. Okay, we'll amend on the, we'll come back later for an amendment on the payroll records and the pay-ins and anything
Yeah.
else we could think of.
Yep.
But the rest of it, we're hoping to get approval today on disposal.
So you got accounts payable and checking statements. Those both should be under 1016, yeah.
Okay,
deposits. I don't think deposits are under 16. Let's see if there's a different one.
Deposits. I don't have a sample of the paper, but I just have the boxes.
We're talking about deposit slips,
Correct.
banking deposit slips.
Under 1010, it mentions they certify a transaction or become a receipt. So would they fit under 1010 better?
No,
Procedures. Certified
They certify a transaction.
it's not a certified transaction.
Oh, then my understanding is different.
Let me look at 1010 again. Computer generated, it's not a computer generated report.
It's not a report, but it's computer generated and it certifies a transaction.
But the language is specific. It says computer generated reports. Although I've never understood how a non-specific report could certify a transaction. But be that as it may, I don't see how this fits in 1010 or 1016. It would be closer to 1010, but it's not, clearly not 1016. Nope. Bids, I wish I could find one, but I can't.
I'm not
Okay.
even finding anything under the manual for deposits.
And maybe the state doesn't want us to get rid of those. There's another point here, though, also, which is until we get done with Debbie's case, we don't want to get rid of the deposits either.
Okay.
Do you agree, Chief?
Yeah, or we would have to pull everything out that might be related.
No, we're not doing that.
Yeah,
Better to just hang on to everything.
I would agree. And tomorrow's the pretrial, so I should know more this week what's going on with that. We may be able to come back to a meeting in a month and say, okay, we don't have to worry about that anymore.
Okay.
No, the only thing I can find under section 8 of the manual, which is financial records, is under deposits, is deposit refund requests. That's it.
Okay.
Laura, Laura, are you looking at a paper version of the manual?
Yes. The
What's
Ohio
the date?
Municipal Records Manual.
Yeah, what's the date on that? Because that may have been updated.
2000 seems to be the most recent. Third.
2000?
Yeah, third revised edition, January 2000. I looked for something more recent.
Okay. Now,
Accounts receivable ledgers. It doesn't
Hey,
say anything
Mayor,
about checks.
yeah, Mayor, I know why we always are required to have a citizen on our commission. Because they're the only one who really pays attention to all of these state requirements.
Well, if you're telling us the Debbie Bosworth situation overrules that, we're just going to hang on to them anyway. So,
Okay,
and we'll come back. We'll talk about getting an amended RC2 on this type of thing down the road.
okay. Yeah, we may not get approval for those.
Well, that's fine too.
Yeah,
Wait, I did find check registers, checking account statements, check stubs. carbons, voided checks. That's it.
Okay,
Not deposits though.
yeah.
What-
Voided check, the other canceled checks or check copies are covered under vouchers for us on this sheet.
Okay.
Same meaning, just different word.
Okay, so accounts payable, checking. So checking statements, because of Debbie, I think we got to hang on to that too.
Okay,
How much longer do you think the Debbie issue will take? year?
It should be done, it'll be done this year, one way or the other.
Okay.
But when you say month end, Dave, are you talking about a report that you generate?
it's a report we generate. It's a summary of all the expenditures and revenues for the month by fund.
Yeah, that should clearly be under 1016.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And you're going back, you're cutting out before 2011, so that's fine.
Right, we're keeping quite a few years worth.
Yeah. What's the difference between the payroll and the payroll register?
Christy, what is that one again?
Let
Can
me
you
take a look. Payroll
up a picture of
register, it could be the same thing. It looks like the same thing. Without pulling the book, I don't know.
Yeah, if you go down to.
Oh,
right
here.
There it is, right there.
Payroll register are these 3-ring binders, whereas the payroll books are these, which we'll have to amend RC2. Dave, can you speak to the
Oh,
difference
those,
between?
yeah, those are reports generated by the software or the payroll company at
Okay,
year end. They don't have the detail that the monthly books do, or the ones on top there. They're kind of a summary of the year's payroll. More for the employer than anything else.
yeah. Laura, can you look at the manual again? Because
Sure.
I don't,
For payroll?
If you're
Yeah.
keeping, if we're gonna keep the payroll books on the big book on top there, the ones down below are redundant. They're the same information, just very condensed and summarized. And again, we also keep the W-2s forever. We don't dispose of those.
Right.
So again, the payroll register has a lot of the same information a W-2 would for an employee.
I did find pay-in records listed here, 3 years provided audited, but that's not payroll.
no, but we did have pay-ins a minute ago.
Yeah. Right.
Sorry. Well,
I'm looking.
that's all right.
Okay, well, it's not under financial records, so. Let's see what else we have here.
Yeah, I don't think it would fit anywhere else.
Yeah,
And under 16, I don't think, I really don't think payroll was intended to be covered by the various monthly payment adjustment, penalty, summary, closing fund balance, month-end reports or spreadsheets. I think we have to keep them unless we amend our schedule.
Okay, we'll come back and do that also.
Yeah. sorry to be putting a wet blanket on all
No, that's
these.
okay. Again, volume wise, the bulk of the stuff that we're asking to get rid of is accounts payable and vouchers. So most of the other books or things are pretty small. What about purchase orders? The next one down. Up there's a box right there.
I know we can get rid of them, but I'm not sure it's 1016. I think. Let me make sure. There might be a separate one.
Hey, Dave, for my own education, are these the pink slips, the purchase orders?
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
Mr. Markowitz, in regards to the pay-ins, if the village has stuff going back into the 80s, for the sake of trying to clear out some stuff right now, could you not change that instead of saying pre-2011, just say what was it, 1997 that Debbie was hired?
Yeah, she did start in
I
97.
mean, obviously anything before she started working here could go.
Right.
But we need to amend the RC2 for pay-ins anyway, because they don't currently fall into a category.
Right, I get it, but I'm just saying if for this first disposal round, if you wanted to try to just get rid of something.
Tell me, what was her hire date, Chief?
I'd have to look, but I feel like it
She
was,
started as a dispatcher. She came upstairs in 97 or 98, 97, I'm almost sure. And took over utilities because that's when Val retired.
I can look at the exact date and get it to you if that's.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Mhm.
It's a good comment.
What was the last thing we were looking for? Purchase order?
Purchase orders. Yeah, 1016 is the only thing that it could fit under.
Okay.
Purchase orders, originals, 3 years.
Are those printouts or are those actual? Oh yeah, those are generated by you, right, Dave?
Right. They're computer generated in-house.
Yeah, those fall under 1016 then.
Okay.
Dave, is that this?
What?
Is this what we're looking at?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So we covered recordings of public meetings. We're okay with that, right?
Yes. And I'm sorry, I listed it twice. It's the same thing.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yep.
So going back then, are we all agreed that we can get rid of the accounts payable, the month end books, purchase orders, and vouchers? And everything else we'll take off the sheet?
No, we can get rid of recordings of public meetings also.
Oh, right. Okay. And those two at the bottom. Okay.
So 4 things.
Five things. 5 categories.
Okay.
Right?
I think so.
Accounts payable month end. Purchase orders, vouchers, and recordings of public meetings.
Great.
Okay.
Perfect.
Good. And everything else we'll hold on to, especially anything Debbie related.
And then at the next meeting, we will work to amend our RC2.
Yeah, so we need to have a motion to approve the disposal of those 5 items. I'll make the motion. Anybody second it?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
You didn't ask if there were any nays.
Thank you. I think that's all I had, unless Christie had any more questions.
That covered my questions as well.
Good,
Now we need to go over to the police.
right.
We're having issues with our mute button.
We can hear you.
Okay. All right, so we updated our RC2 in 2016, as you probably remember, and then we started going through tons and tons of records. We did end up destroying a ton of records, but as we started digging through, of course, we found things that we didn't know we had. So they're not covered in our RC2. And then we also have some questions that we just need legal clarification on. So, well, I'll let Lisa go down the list of things that she's come across, and then we'll go from there. So.
Well, so my first question is we're gonna do another destruction of records that are on our RC2. Once we get through that, some of those records we no longer, like the BAC, we no longer generate or have that. We haven't had it since 2012. So once those records we no longer have, can we modify the RC2 and take that off, or does it still need to stay on there?
No, I mean, you could get rid of it.
Okay.
To me, I wouldn't get rid of it, though. I'll tell you why. If somebody were to come along and challenge something that occurred all those years ago and say, well, why don't you have those records anymore? If we don't show it on our schedule, how do we prove that we had it on there and had the right to dispose of it?
Okay, that's fine. As I'm going through and trying to look at what we have and don't have anymore. So then so a couple of the notations I had was to take stuff off that we don't have anymore, but we can leave them on. But under number 60 on our schedule, the Leeds newsletters.
60?
Yeah, number 60.
Yeah,
So we're required to keep those 3 years now. So I just need to add another year.
okay.
And then I'm not sure where to get the answer for this. I'm trying to figure out what the difference between we have property evidence forms, number 91, original copy. So and under the state retention, it has property room records, releases, transfers, disposals, 5 years. But on ours, we have 15 years. So I'm trying to wrap my head around, and maybe I'm overthinking it, as far as, is there a difference between property and evidence in terms of keeping these forms?
Hey, when you say it's 5 years, you're not talking about in your Ohio Revised Code. You're talking about, well, I don't know, what manual are you referencing?
So I'm looking at the Ohio records where they have the suggestions for the years for how long you keep records.
Okay,
And
Yeah.
under property room, under the law enforcement section or police department section, number 44, it says property room, records, releases, transfers, disposals, 5 years. So I'm just trying to see if we can take ours, because currently on our RC2, we have 15. Can we take that down to 5?
unless you tell me you think there's a reason to keep it longer, but I can't imagine what it would be.
The only thing I could think of is if you had a serious, I mean, if you had like a homicide or,
So homicide
Oh,
and
those
rape,
are
we have to
permanent.
keep permanent.
well, so well, I guess the only other one would be felonies, right? So statute of limitations on felonies is usually minimum of 7 years.
Why don't you put in terms of a class of felony, does that help at all?
And it kind of overcomplicates it. I mean,
Okay. No, I just was trying to simplify.
is there any reason? Well, I guess
Remember,
just
this is saying it's 15 years after you dispose of the property. So, once you've got, you're not getting rid of that property till you no longer, find that it has any need. So this is just the forms. And why we were holding it 15 years after you got rid of the property, I have no idea.
So you think we could take that down to 5 because it's property and or evidence that's already been disposed of in some form?
Right.
Okay. And would you consider, we were questioning that the word logs. So we have logs in terms of what property and evidence is in the room. We also have logs of who, other than the person who is in charge. So we have one custodian and then we have one like a supervisor. So, the detective is the custodian of the property. The lieutenant is the supervisor. They are the only 2 people that have keys to that room. Anybody else that sets foot in there has to sign in or out, and the lieutenant signs in or out if he makes entry into that room. That's what I consider a log. Is that how you would interpret that too?
I do.
Okay.
To me, a log is what goes in and out, whether it's person or property.
So are we good with that being 2 years? That's what we currently have.
Well,
Or do you think that it should match?
So according to the state, if that should be 25 years, why, I don't know.
yeah, see, I would think you'd want to keep the log longer than the original copy of the property form.
So we currently have 2 years. I'm surprised they didn't flag that because I wonder if that was even a typo on our part. Like, how do you go from 2 to 25?
You're not talking about a lot of paperwork there, are you?
On our end?
Are these written? It's paper, or is it?
Yeah, but it's not a ton, no, because I mean, you can fit, 30 entries on one sheet of paper, and the lieutenant doesn't go in there that often.
I'd say if the state's got 25, we ought to go back to what the state has.
Okay.
All right, so I can make that change. So under 107, employee applicant records, not hired. So I have a box of applications from 2012 that were involved. There was a lawsuit that came out of that.
Right.
There are copies of the applications and the applications. The lawsuit has since been, I'm assuming, settled. So my question is, do I still need to maintain those? I mean, according to this, I can get rid of them. I just don't want to dispose of them should they be of any type of value.
Well, that's always the first judgment call you make. And then, you make sure you're past 4 years, but I think you can get rid of those.
Okay.
Lisa, we have a lot of those up here too, we can get rid of.
Well,
Okay.
this is like for the police department.
No,
Yeah,
we-
these are applicants that were not hired. So they
Yeah,
went
that's-
through the background process and they were,
we have quite a few of those in the file up here. They're from the police department.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They're files that we just put aside and they've been here a long time.
People that weren't hired?
People that weren't hired.
Yeah, you probably need that to prove you're not discriminating. in it.
One group of them right off the top of my head is when Jim Brocious was hired. We had a lot of
Oh.
other applicants and they put the files up here.
So, oh, so
Okay,
you're
so
going
that
way
was
back.
before me. I was gonna say,
Right.
I do not turn in files of people that are not hired. I keep them according to the records retention schedule, and then we dispose of them.
I'll get together with you up here and we'll go through and take out all the non-hired applicants and
Okay,
I'll turn those over to you.
Let me ask you a question. Where are you disposing of these records?
Shredder.
they get shredded.
When the shred truck comes, we shred them.
Okay, you shred, it's, all right, that's all I need to know.
Yeah, for this disposal, we're gonna bring the shred truck to the village hall and do it right here.
Okay, good.
When we did our last ones, Mr. Markowitz, we stood there and watched. There was no. Like, we
Good.
don't just give them to them and assume they're shredding them. We actually put them in ourselves and watch it happen, so.
Right, we'll do the same thing here.
We could create a fundraiser out of that.
Not a bad idea.
We could let
Exactly.
people for $25, you can throw those records into the
That's
shredder.
not a bad idea.
It was actually very satisfying, those 100 boxes, watching them go.
Number 133, bicycle registrations. I'd like to take that back down to 7 years. That's what the state minimum is. We really don't have those per se, but I don't think there's a reason to keep them longer anyways.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Do we need to say paper and computer or multi?
Well, now it's computerized. I don't even know where paper
We don't have it
is.
either.
They're all
paper.
in CAD or.
Okay.
And then number 139 and 140, those are new additions that I want to add. They're records that we came across in going through everything to get shredded. And so I want to add them so that they're on a schedule to get shredded and I took the years. I did those based off of, again, the state schedule where I felt that they qualified. And actually I probably added a year just to be safe in case somebody said anything.
Are those paper records or are those both?
They're both, so they're paper and computer.
How far back do these go?
That one probably goes back further, right?
I would say 10, 15 years. So the registration blocks, back in the day, those are for unpaid parking tickets. We can put a block on a person's registration. Back in the day, that because our parking tickets are an MM, if I'm not mistaken.
No,
What is that,
no.
Lisa?
Minor misdemeanor.
Oh.
So we could actually send them to court and put a warrant out for somebody's arrest. We stopped doing that and just did the registration block instead.
Okay.
And then the mayor, I would have to check. It's probably a good 15 years that the Supreme Court requires us to report any case that we handle through our mayor's court. And our mayor's court is specifically a waiver bureau. So we can take waivers for traffic violations and misdemeanor violations that are not required to go to court. So we have to report quarterly to the Supreme Court what cases we handled through us.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
well, now we do it electronically, but we have several years of paper copies of that. We just went electronic in this year, 2021.
so, yeah, it makes sense to me.
Yeah. Because the Supreme Court's gonna have that too.
So,
We had to
Yeah,
report to them.
correct.
so we need a motion to amend the schedules as you presented it, with one exception being, let me go back to that. On policy number 00092, that would be 25 years for those logs rather than 2 years.
Correct, yeah.
Okay,
Before you make your motion, can we talk about the personnel file stuff real quick?
sure.
So I did, and I saw your email as far as hours not matching the villages. So I guess here's my question. The village RC2 says 2 years after they leave employment. I guess what my question is, like, so the village employee evaluations, for example, the ones that are supposed to be used across the board, on the bottom of that form, it says it will be removed from the file after 3 years. And so there's always been, I guess, a question for me. We don't remove them because I've always been unsure, because the RC2 doesn't, I guess that's my confusion. Is the RC2 just talking about the existence of the file itself, and the stuff inside of it, there's some discretion on the part of either the village or the department heads or whatever, of things that could be, because I know other departments will allow for someone to say, hey, you know, I got in trouble 10 years ago for crashing the car, and I'd like that removed from my file. I haven't had any other infractions for 10 years. Can that get removed? And there's mechanisms in place for people to do that. We don't have anything like that here as far as I know. But I've had people ask me in the past, well, I got a bad evaluation 10 years ago and I don't want that in my file anymore. Why can't it get taken out?
Well, I don't, whoever's using those practices isn't thinking about the records retention requirements. But, you know, if the state would allow us to amend the schedule to permit you to do that, then I would think you could, but short of that, I don't think you can.
So that's my question. Can we add? I don't know, where
You
did
could-
that come from on and the form that we currently use for evaluations has been around since I started here 20 years ago. Like, where did that come from? It says right on the form, will be removed after 3 years. Or is it just that nobody realized that it wasn't on the RC2?
Yeah, I have no idea, because, you know, policy 108 says that's supposed to be permanent.
So I guess I would like to find a way to be able to remove those things, or take it off our forms, because it's misleading to people.
I would take that off your form. And the one thing you could do in your records is you'd say, we would remove this, but for the requirement to retain these records permanently. But
Is it an internal form, or is it a state form, or that has that notation? at the
It's
bottom?
internal.
Oh,
Yeah, those are not required by the state or anybody else. Other departments don't even use that.
But they're in
I mean,
I believe they're in the village manual, that you have to do a yearly evaluation on the employee.
Even other departments, especially up here, we have not done those since Ed Towns told us not to do them anymore, back when he was mayor. That was the mid-90s.
right.
Then
Not-
should we take it out of the handbook and not do evaluations on anybody? Like,
I think people do their evaluations as they see fit, not on that form. Mayor
Well-
Towns told us not to use those anymore, if I
Well,
remember
first-
correctly, because you can't change the payroll system. Everybody's locked into the rigid grid, and it just created more problems than it could solve, you know?
he may have said that, but A, he had no legal power to do that. And B, is that was before we had this handbook.
Well, we had handbook back then too, but
Well, I don't know what the handbook
Yeah.
said, not the thing, but our handbook policy is you're supposed to do them manually. If you want to get rid of that, then let's take that to council and get rid of it.
yeah, we'll have to do that then.
Dale, I did bring this up to Angie when we were doing a previous revision of the employee handbook. And I asked if we could remove that and make that an as-needed thing, and it was, I don't remember the disposition of that. It was almost like we wanted to leave it in case they wanted to do it, but I didn't like the way that it was written. But I agree that it shouldn't say you will do an evaluation, and the language should definitely be changed.
Yeah, I mean, they could make it so it's a judgment called by the head of that department.
Yeah,
Right.
needed.
We could do that.
Good question.
Okay, so you're, I guess what I'm taking away is that we should just leave the personnel file alone and that nothing should be removed from it.
Well, I don't want to give the impression that no one could ever change things, like, let's say Dave has a spreadsheet and there's a mathematical error. He's allowed to make that adjustment. But what, as I understand it, is that if there's an evaluation or if there's an incident with an officer, those are part of the records that are supposed to be kept for on a permanent basis. But I think it's something maybe we can go back to the state and say, can we change it? Lisa, have you looked at the state manual to see what they say?
Not specific. Let me see if I can.
I'm just curious because the Lexipol policy that I sent you, and not that they can't be wrong, obviously they can, but they base the lawyers that write those policies base it on best practice and Ohio law. So I would assume that there has to be some basis for that. You know what I mean? For them to say that somebody could request that something be removed.
Yeah, I mean, I would call the state and say, hey, we want to get rid of the permanency language. Is that going to be an issue here? If it's something that's not covered in the manual.
Okay. Well, I guess we're gonna have to do some research then. We don't have to figure that out today, obviously. It's just, I know it's come up multiple times since I've been here. So I'd like to at least have a rational answer to give to people when they ask,
Amber, I should add that we've never removed anything from anybody else's file for any kind of disciplinary action or any negative comments that are in their file for whatever reason. We've never taken anything out. So if that would help you when you're talking to people in your department.
No, I don't think it's a question of what's going on elsewhere. I think it's the biggest issue is always that form says on it, it's going to be removed after 3 years. And then people look at their personnel file and go, I got a bad review, 20 years ago. Why is it still in my
I think that
file?
sets up a conflict and potential problems. I think the conflict needs to be resolved.
Well,
I
then
don't really care how.
we've tried to modify and use our own form in the past to make it more, because that form is not, it's a generic, village-wide employee form. And we've always felt that it wasn't the best form to use for the police department because it doesn't apply really. It's just general performance stuff. I mean, we make it work, or maybe we stop doing them altogether. I don't know. I mean, if nobody else is doing them.
Well, don't you have to have some mechanism for reviewing your employees, though?
I think so.
Particularly to paper a file, should there be issues?
Right.
Yeah.
So why don't you just remove the 3 years? If the 3 years just is an internal thing, why don't you just remove the 3 years? And
Yeah, I have
keep
no
them in the
idea
file.
where that came from.
Okay. Well, so what I guess will do on my end is try to come up with a form that's similar, but I don't know, this is like the age-old question within the police department, like what's the best form of evaluation that's fair, but that's also specific to police work.
Right.
So I'll just come up with something.
Okay.
And Chief, we can talk about that further to make sure we're all in concert and uniform with what the overall village is doing.
Okay.
What we might have to modify in our employee manual.
Is that all we had then? Okay, I think that's all we had. If we can get permission to submit those modifications.
Do we have to vote on anything else? Any other changes in the RC2?
We didn't vote on that one yet. On the PD.
Yeah, the motion would be is to approve the changes to the RC2 for the police department with the one change for, I forgot what policy number that is now. That was 00092 to go to 25 years from 2 years. Otherwise, it would be as presented by Lisa and the chief.
I'll make that motion.
Oh, hold on 1 second. So I finally found it under personnel records. It
Yeah.
says employee performance evaluation, 5 years. Sorry, I've been reading through the whole thing.
And you've been doing that on your phone?
Yes.
Understandable why it took so long.
So,
Yeah, I have no idea then why ours is permanent.
So if I may just give an opinion, and it's strictly an opinion. To me, 5 years of an evaluation is, as Ms. Garetta was kind of alluding to earlier, if you have a problem employee, you would want that documentation in case it, especially within a police department, to be able to move towards either some sort of correction and or termination. But in terms of performance evaluations, I would think that in 5 years, if somebody's consistently getting bad evaluations, some sort of action would have been taken.
So
I'm not necessarily against keeping them forever, but I could also see a case for if somebody, legitimately works hard to turn around their performance, and let's say they go 5 years with excellent evaluations and would like to see those from 10 years ago go away. I could see a case for that too. So I could go either way on that, but like I said before, my biggest issue was always that we said we were going to get rid of them after 3 years, but then we didn't. So I don't know what anybody else thinks about it.
Yes.
What if we had a time period and then said you purge it if it's no longer of an administrative value?
That works.
And
there's
that,
also a line item for disciplinary action too, and that's 4 years. So they're separate, they're listed separately under this personnel records.
So let me ask this question. If, let's say our RC2, we change that to say 5 years for the evaluations, unless, and no longer of an administrative value. And we do the same thing for the discipline one. That leaves us the discretion to say, no, there's a pattern of behavior here. We need to keep this.
Right.
And then internally require the employee to petition to have it removed.
Yeah, I would think you should be able to lump those under the same policy, but I don't know. State may want them separate, but I would think it could all be under 108.
But then the question becomes, I don't think that, I think we'd have to create a new one because 108 more is their, that's their field training and evaluation records, which is totally separate. So when they're in field training, there's a whole binder that they go through and are checked off on. And that we have to maintain for the life of employment.
Okay. Well, it's no big deal to create a new policy number.
But the question is the village going to have to create the same one? Are we allowed to be, if the village, how does it cause a conflict then?
I think it could be more strict, but definitely not less required than the overall village policies. If there's a unique need specific to one department. I don't know.
Yeah, what's the village general policy? Looking. It's permanent purge 2 years after employee leaves village employment. Retain permanent record of service time, salary, leave, taxes, resignation, retirement information, and waivers. There's nothing specific on discipline.
Rob, do you have an opinion on the discipline part?
It just came up. I would have to think about that some more, looking at some of the different scenarios here. I mean, we've never removed a disciplinary action from someone's file, and I definitely think that an actual disciplinary action would be useful if kept in a file longer than a 3 to 5 year period. So if you had something that happened, say 7 to 10 years ago, and that same occurrence happened even in that period, there could be examples of where it would be useful to still have that in the file longer than a 3 to 5 year period. But we need to have some more discussion on that, I think. That's just my initial thoughts.
Right, and so I think from a policy standpoint, if we write in that it's administrative discretion, and also that if we put it on the employee to petition to have something removed, they need to show, in my mind, show cause why it should be removed, not that we need to show cause why it shouldn't. I mean, certain things in the police department would not get removed. You know, if we had somebody who was disciplined for excessive force or, you know, something like that, that's not going to get removed.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd be.
And clearly a disciplinary action is different than an employee evaluation. So,
Correct.
Right. So, more of a corrective action nature, I think, should be in the file longer than just an employee review.
So just to keep the, I guess, meeting moving, do we want to table those two for now, or do we want to add them? I mean, I don't want to drop it because I'd like to come to some sort of, if we're going to have a second follow-up meeting this year to do the other village stuff, we could potentially add it then, but.
I think that'd be a better time to address it. It'll give us a time to talk about this further.
Okay. Is there any limit from the state on how many times we can submit the change our RC2?
Not that I ever heard of.
Not that
Okay.
I've heard of, no.
All right, well, I'm comfortable leaving it until the next meeting then, so we can talk about it further. I just like to get that on there one way or the other.
Okay.
All right.
So we had made the motion, it was seconded, and we never voted on it. So we're not adding the
Right.
disciplinary one yet. And we're not changing the Well, we should wait till the next meeting, I would assume, to change the language on the purging of the records, or do you want to add that one now?
You're referring to the evaluations?
Yeah,
We can wait on that one too. I mean, I think it should be, we need to discuss how it affects or how it impact. I mean, well, I guess we're the only ones doing evaluations though, right? So if we're the only ones doing them, let's add it now.
Is the fire department doing them as well?
Not that I'm aware of.
okay. So let's hold off on that. We ready to vote?
Who seconded that one? I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
We have a motion, Dale?
I made the motion
Yeah, I seconded
and
it.
Dale seconded, okay.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, nobody opposed? All right, motion carries.
Okay.
Please. So now we want to talk about destroying all your records, right?
What do you mean?
Lisa, I think I put that on the agenda in the event that you had a list prepared to discuss, but we can just pass over it if you don't have anything to discuss for destroying.
Well,
If
most,
it's on our RC2, we don't have to submit
Right.
it to the state, correct?
unless it's.
No, but our committee has to approve the destruction,
You need to fill out the RC3 form.
right?
Only if it's checked, right? Most of the stuff that we have doesn't require an
Okay,
RC3.
yeah. But if it does, then you need to fill out the form, right?
Yeah, like
Correct, but
booking
yeah,
records.
most of our stuff does not, Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I got you.
The one
We're
we talked
keeping-
about the other day, the incident reports, that requires an RC3.
no, so that check mark there that you were referring to, Dale,
Yeah,
if you read that, actually the state's the one who did that, and she put no RC3 with her initials under it.
oh, that was for 72? Oh, that's right, that's right. That's the one I thought the chief had initiated.
Yeah, no, that's actually the initials of the lady from the state archives.
Okay,
And so anything that we've destroyed so far, regardless of whether it was, well, like.
We
I said,
haven't destroyed anything that requires an RC3. We're still just trying to get through boxes.
But we've been keeping a list of everything that we have gotten rid of so far. So we can provide that if anybody wants to see it.
Okay.
okay with me. Anything else we have?
No, we'll fill out the RC3 and send it to Columbus for their approval. I think we have to give them 15, not even approval, they get to review it, right?
Right,
So we give them 15 days, we'll give them more than that and probably have a disposal in a month or so.
As exciting as this has been, is there a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Seconded.
All in favor? If somebody's opposed, I'm gonna know who.
Aye,
All right, all in favor, say aye.
All right,
aye,
Aye.
all right.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.